Hello and welcome back to my craft room. Well, it's time to do a little bit more work on my underwater world textile collage today. It's very slow progress. I've got a lot of other projects going on at the same time. I've promised myself I'm not going to stress about this. There's no deadline. I'm just going to take my time and enjoy this project. It's such a good opportunity to try lots of different stitches and techniques and things, and I just want to take the time and really make the most of it. It's been so exciting to see all the different takes on this project that people have been sharing in the Facebook group and Discord community. It just really makes me so happy to see. So inspiring as well to see all the different ideas, lots of things I'd never thought of. I think we're all inspiring each other, which is fab. It's exactly what we want. So today, let me take you to the desk. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit more work on my seahorse that I started last time. I've got I want to do a little bit of beading on him, a little bit of embroidery, and I want to make him some kind of stump work wings. Not wings, it's not a wing, is it? Is it a dorsal fin? The bit that comes out here that I think of as a wing. I'm going to do that with stump work so that it will stand proud of the piece. I've got this kind of wrapped wire that I'm going to use for that, and I'm going to do it with this stuff, which I think will look really pretty but might be a bit tricky to work on, but hey ho, we'll see how we go. The rest of what I'm doing today is all about different ways of manipulating fabric to give it more dimension. So yeah, things like stump work. Also I'm going to be pleating and folding and stuffing and crumpling fabric and stitching into it and manipulating it in various ways to create texture and dimension in my background and on my creatures. I'm going to be following along with a tutorial by the lovely Sarah Humphrey, who does a tutorial on her YouTube channel showing how to do a stump work dragonfly. So I'm going to do this dorsal fin in much the same way as she's done the dragonfly wings. I'll link to her video in my description there. Sarah's demonstrations are always so beautifully filmed, so clear, so well explained. She's brilliant. I need to create a bit more background because if you've not seen it, this is the beginnings of my underwater scene that I'm creating. So those are the first 2 pages. Got lots more background work I want to do. I just wanted to keep it going for people that are moving along on this project much quicker than I am. So the seahorse and the creatures are that I've got templates available for those. I'll put links to them in the description box as well. So yeah, I just want to sort of keep it moving, but what I'm doing is making another creature and then come back and working some more on what I've already started. So yeah, I'm sort of leapfrogging a bit. Leapfrogging back and forth. There will be more templates coming soon. I keep promising it, but I've had such a bit of a hellish last few weeks actually, so I'm a bit behind where I wanted to be, but I've been promising the turtle and the starfish, and they are definitely on the way, hoping to finish them up tomorrow, so they'll be ready next week or later this week once this video goes out. And I'm also going to add in, suggested by, I think it was Jean who suggested it, hi Jean, who asked if I could add a Nautilus to the template collection, and I started looking at some images of Nautilus, and I thought, yeah, we've definitely got to do this. We have got to do this. So I will be doing a Nautilus as well, because I think that's just going to be such fun to add to our pieces. So that's all my bits and bobs for the seahorse. I'll be working on in a minute. I'll use some more embroidery threads down here as well, and I've got some beads. I haven't even made a dent in this tray. I got it for a couple of quid in a charity shop. What a find. I've got lots of other beads and sequins as well. I want to put a sequin for his eye. And then to create the next page where my seahorse will go, I've got another piece of this background fabric that I got in a charity shop just recently. And then I've got all of these pieces that I've pulled out of my stash of Bazaar scraps. So the Bazaar scrap, most of what I've done has been made with the Bazaar scrap bundles. I love Bazaar. You know, if you're a regular viewer, you'll know how much I love the Bazaar scrap bundles. And as well as the original ones where you get mixtures of cotton and silk, you can also get texture packs and brocade packs and all sorts on there now. So I'll leave a link to Bazaar as well. But yeah, I've got all kinds here that I'm going to use to create dimension and texture in my background. Love this fabric, love this. I will probably just give this a little light stuffing. I've used it in a different colourway here, just flat in the background. Oops, but I'm really getting into the stuffing and pleating and folding malarkey. I thought this might be nice to create some brain coral. I might get a bit of wooding to put behind that. I thought some of these, I want to do a shoal of fish, and I thought some of these beautiful golden bouquets and things, that some of these would be nice to do the fish. But I might also try pleating them up to create the kind of stem part of sea anemones, and then I can create little drizzle stitched pieces. I was doing the drizzle stitch last time to go on the top, like these beautiful ones that Betty made for me to go on the top. That's the other one actually. I've got one is already in place there as well. I love when you get these different texture pieces in the Bazaar packs. I thought some of these would be lovely just to make some almost like reverse, you know, the what I think of as the non-gathered side of Suffolk puffs, and just stuff them out a bit. Looking at this, I showed this book last time as well. Looking at what Judith Baker Montano has done here. Some of these little circular pieces. I think this would be a lovely way, as they're dotted around here, that would be a lovely way, I thought, to use some of these smaller scraps. Like got another little piece like that. It's gone. It's here somewhere. It's fallen on the floor. But yeah, even little pieces like that would be really nice, just stuffed like that. And a little piece here. I think this was in a little package from Karen in Wales, actually. I think that's where this one came from. This looks like a hand-coloured piece of velvet, and I just thought just crumpled like this and stitched into the background just to create a little bit of interest. So yeah, today is largely about manipulating fabric in different ways to give it dimension and texture. Oh, I've got this piece here, another piece of this lace that I dyed with Inktense blocks, and this was a piece from Mand in that beautiful package that Mand sent me. So I thought if I put this over the top of perhaps a piece of this silk from Bazaar and stuff it out a bit, I can make little corally things. This is very similar to some of the things that the lovely Christine over at Create and Craft with Christine was doing with her coral reef project. Oh, so beautiful. Her the Octopus's garden piece that she did was just so fantastic. Of course I will link to Christine as well. And she did a lot of things, like she hand coloured, again using Inktense blocks, vintage laces and things. This happened to come in this colour, but she hand dyed some of the sort of neutral coloured pieces that she had, and then sort of crumpled them up to create little coral things. And I also have some nylon lace, and I have some white nylon lace. It's just not something I'd normally choose to use, but what Christine did with it again was to dye it beautiful bright colours and then gather it up and things, and it just made it look beautiful. So I'm going to do a bit of that as well. I don't think I'll fit all of that in this video, but I just want to do a bit of work on the seahorse, do the wings, and then a little bit of the fabric manipulation with you, and then next time I'll show you how I've been getting on with that. But there seems to be absolutely no shortage of ideas out there. People have just been going nuts with this, which is just making me very happy bunny indeed. Okay, let's put all of those scraps to one side a minute. And just to show you, because people have asked a couple of times, this is the size I'm working on. This is folded in half, so I'm making each of my pieces like this, and they will all link together. They will all be either tied or put on rings here. This will become the spine, but it can be taken apart and open out to be viewed as one long kind of continuous frieze to tell the story that I'm wanting to tell. So I'm starting all, my idea is to start all bright and colourful and beautiful and show all our beautiful sea creatures, and then gradually get darker and darker towards the end, and sadly ending up with, I hope, a meaningful message about pollution and environmental change and how it's affecting our wonderful oceans and the life within them. I think it's an important message, and it might sound a little bit macabre, perhaps, way to end my project, but I just think it's an important message. So yeah. So I need to have a new page. I'm not going to do the whole of the page really, because I did kind of put a page together at the beginning of this project. But essentially what I will do is just take larger pieces like this. You tend to find that the sea will, you know, underwater scenes will look lighter at the top and darker towards the bottom. So on the end of that last page there, it had got a little bit darker, and I was going to work darker towards the end. But when I come to do the Nautilus live very deep in the ocean. So, and my next couple of creatures are going to be the Seahorse and the Lobster. And I want to do another couple of fabulous fish, because I've got some ideas, techniques I want to try with some beautiful fishtail effects. And I want to do a couple of shoals of fish as well, because I've seen what other people have been doing and it's so beautiful. So I'm thinking I'm going to keep this page a little bit on the lighter side, and kind of still coral reefy looking, and then I'll start to go deeper on this side. I'll start to go deeper in colour and deeper down in the ocean. So yeah, I still want to do examples of, it'll be the lobster next, and then the turtle and starfish, and then finally the Nautilus, and then I'm going to start going towards my sort of finale page. The nice thing is that I'm going to see it as the book will then come around again back to the light part at the end. It'll kind of come full circle, and that's what I hope. I hope that it's not too late now that we are aware there is no excuse, and we do have the technology and the knowledge to turn this around. I do hope. Yeah, it was interesting to read people's comments after the last video. People who live in areas where they can see with their own eyes the effect of our actions or inaction. I'm not going to put this all in one piece. I'm just thinking if I cut it, I can make it still lighter at the top. Yeah, let's cut it here. Well, just to give continuity from the previous pages as well, I will add in some of the pieces I used there. And I'll cut the extra off here, because this fabric can now be carried into the next page as well, again to give a bit of continuity. I've got some of this beautiful light blue. It's a light greenish blue, and it looks very grey on there. And I'm going to use some of this. This is in a parcel that Man sent me. It has already damage and holes in it and things, so I feel okay about cutting it up to use. And I will gradually start bringing bits of this in, I think. But I'm just wondering whether to have some wisps of it already. Some of it would be nice cut up and just use as wisps of like seaweed. I'm also thinking that for the later pages where I'm planning to show, in the darker pages, I'm planning to show a dead and dying coral reef where they go bone white. It's like a coral graveyard. It's so sad to see. But I'm thinking I could then do one of the brain corals, but in this, so it would look like it's lost all its colour. And I also think this would probably take colour really well, so I could dye some of it to use earlier on as well. And another thought that occurred to me is to show some as an illustration of the kind of physical, visible pollution of the oceans. I could see if I can half paint, half embroider a representation of plastic bags in the ocean. Maybe even one of my unfortunate creatures could be trapped in it. You even hear stories about like hermit crabs? I think it's some kind of crab that, you know, makes its home in like an old McDonald's container or whatever, which is just like horrible. So I'm thinking that could be used for some of this as well. So yeah, I'm not going to go through and do all of this now, but what I'll do is layer and layer lots of different scraps. I'll rummage through my Bazaar scraps as well. You can see the kind of thing I did there, just to create an interesting variety of shades of blue and green in the background, and perhaps bring in some other colours as well, just, you know, and different textures and things. I might cut this into to cut out these sort of motifs. Actually, this whole thing has been inspired by a wonderful Viviana Molinares. I should have mentioned at the beginning, in case you've missed these. I'll link to the playlist about it's the Viviana Molinares playlist. All the videos for this project are on there, and the way she puts her backgrounds together is just so inspiring. She puts things in there you wouldn't necessarily expect as well, which I always love. I will just layer and layer lots of different scraps to create this background from a seahorse. I'm not going to do any more of that now because I've shown all that before. The next bit is to get cracking on a seahorse. Here's a beautiful example of one of Viviana Molinares' seahorses, which she sent me on this gorgeous charm. Oh, fabulous is that. I just love this. So I'm not going to slavishly copy this. Mine is different anyway, but you can see the kind of thing she does. I'm going to do a bit of the work here while it's still in the frame, then I'm going to cut it out and add the rest of the beading and kind of any outlining when I've stitched it to my background. I'm thinking this front area, where this front area is different, I'm going to do some embroidery, just very simple embroidery in this pink there to make that stand out a bit. And then where I've changed, I've used two different types of fabrics there and there. I might just do some beading up that spine, put a bead inside each one of these chain stitches. Perhaps that could be fun. I could also do a little bit of beading on this inner kind of crest thing, and the sequin and a little bead for the eye. I think that's all I will do while it's on the frame, and then I will carefully cut it out and apply it to my background before I do any more work. The wing I'm going to do separately, so luckily my handy dandy embroidery frame here has a smaller frame on the other side, so I'll use that, and I'll be putting this in there to work the wing, and then the wing will be applied once it's on the background as well, which is why I kind of have to think about starting the background, because I can't finish the seahorse without the background being ready for him. Right, I'm going to keep this really simple. I'm hoping this will look alright. I'm just going to do some straight stitches across here, not so close together as you could call it satin stitch, but yeah, just straight back and forth to fill the shape. And actually I'm not going to go right across the back like I was just now, because that's a waste of thread. I'm going to go down there. Let's zoom in a bit, because you can't see anything like that, can you? So I'm just coming up just next to where I went through to the back. So I'm putting the needle through to the back and then coming back up right next to it, rather than carrying the thread right across the back every time. It uses, like, you know, half the amount of thread. So there we go. So there's not a lot there. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't show a huge amount, certainly not on camera, but I think in real life that's just going to be enough to give it a nice bit of interest in texture and a difference, you know, just make that little part stand out a bit. And when this is stitched to the background, I might add a bead down the front of each, on each one of these points. Somebody was asking, a couple of people actually were asking about why I sometimes do it on a frame like this and sometimes do it direct to the background. Partly it's just, it depends on how I'm feeling. partly it depends on what I want to do. And I think because I want to stuff this seahorse out a little bit, once it's applied to the background, if I then do the stitching after I've stuffed it, it will just flatten the stuffing out again, especially on such a small piece as this, I think. So to me it makes sense to do this first and then apply it to background, stuff it as much as I'm going to, and then continue with the beading and things. It is nearly always easier to work the little creatures separately on a frame like this first. It's easier to do the actual work, but then you've also got the faff of cutting it out and applying it as well. So I mean, you know, it depends on what you find easier really. This is quite often what Viviana does to create her fishes and lobsters and other creatures, which is why I started doing it this way. I think with her octopus she did it straight to the background, whereas I actually did still do it on a piece of calico like this initially. Yeah, it just very much depends on what you do and how you want to work. So I'm going to carry on doing this little bit of stitching here, just to kind of wishing I'd carried it down to there as well. Now I might have to go back and do that little section as well to kind of finish this off. It feels like it wants to finish there, so I might just go back afterwards and put some of this in as well. So I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to stitch the eye on and then do some beading, so I'll be back in a mo. There we go. So I've finished doing that. There's kind of straight stitches all the way down there, and then I followed it up with another straight stitch just across the base of each little section there. And now I've started to add a bead. It's these clear glass beads with like an orange middle, which I really like the look of. I'm just going to add one into the inside of each of those little chain stitches. So I'm bringing my needle up here, and they're quite nice big holes in these needles, so I can use the same thread, and I haven't even had to change my needles, so that's a bonus. I've got them in pink and orange, these, so I might use pink ones down the crest, perhaps, would be nice. Just encourage it to go on its side so that you can see the orange stripe in the middle. And I'm liking the look of that so much, I'm wondering whether to do it in all of the spines down there actually, because it does look quite cute. And I've got lots of these beads, which is nice. What a bargain. Stitch them all the way down and decide if I want to also add them down all of those spines. I'm kind of feeling like I want to. What do you reckon? Should I do it? So yeah, I'm going to keep doing that, and then I want a little sequin for the eye and some beads around this crest here, and then I've got the little dorsal fin thingy to do. Right, I've beaded all up and down there, and put some around there as well. I'll add more around the outside and all down the back when it's on the piece. And I put a sequin with a black bead in the centre to make its eye, and I'm just going to use up the remaining thread now to do a little kind of reverse back stitch around the circle to define the outside of the eye. So I just thought it'd look interesting. A little bit harder work going through where I've got the heat and bond light, which I showed in the last video, but it doesn't leave any sticky residue on the needle at all, so that's good. Oops. think that'll look quite nice. And I think I'll do some French knots around here, around his cheek as well, in a contrasting colour. Perhaps I'll pick up a paler pink, or that kind of, pick up this corally colour and just do some French knots around there. Might have done a bit more work, come back to show you how I'm getting on. So I did a lot of French knots in a, it looks pink there, but it's kind of pale corally colour. And then I did a blanket stitch around the sort of cheek there, and now I've decided to use some of this variegated orange, and I'm doing the blanket stitch around there as well. Did that blanket stitch around the eye. I've already shown you that. I'm going to whip the inside of that blanket stitch now with the orange, and when I've finished blanket stitching around to here, and I might just, with whatever thread I've got, just indicate kind of a mouth shape along there. I don't even know if they have that, or if this is just a tube actually, but that's what I'm going to do. So I might find that once I've applied this to my backing and done the stuffing, that I then want to stitch again around this, the edge of the face here and this crest, to give some sense of difference in depth. But yeah, I can do that. I can do that later. Oh, I've got a knot or something. It's not coming through. Yeah, so just finishing up a blanket stitch now. And I've got I'm going through 4 layers here of the heat and bond, which I used on the back of the silks here to make them more manageable. So it is a little bit harder work to stitch through, but you can see it's not impossible. And although I've been stitching away on it for quite some time now, there's absolutely no hint of any stickiness. Now, so that's just reminded me, someone left me a tip in the comments about stitching through this. You can warm it slightly to make it easier to stitch through, and I've only just remembered that. But yeah, I could like warm it just gently with my hairdryer or whatever, and that will just slightly soften the heat and bond stuff to make it that bit easier to stitch through. So I will try that next time. Thank you for that tip. Always happy to get little tips and ideas in the comments. Yeah, so I'm just now carrying this, just whipping the edge of this blanket stitch here around the cheek. I might do the odd few little tiny straight stitches, little seed stitches in this orange as well. Nothing too fancy really, just thought I'd come back and show you a little bit of what I'm doing, and I'm trying to just show little short bits so that I can fit in some of the background that I want to work on, the fabric manipulation bits as well. So yeah, just show a little snippet of everything in case anyone's sort of looking for ideas as to how to get started. Don't forget, if you haven't seen the previous video of how I started this seahorse, or where I made the octopus and the fish and the background and all of that, you can catch up on everything in the Viviana Molinaris playlist, which I will link in the description, along with links to Art Christine of Create and Craft with Christine, so you can check out her octopus's garden. It was fabulous. Sarah Humphrey, to get a better idea of how to do the stump work and back fin that I'm going to do in a minute. I will do a little bit of that with you, but I would say if you want to see it shown properly, check out Sarah Humphrey's video. Right, now I'm going to go up to this blanket stitch I've got around the eye. I'm just going to try and come up there. That's it. And I'm just going to whip that inside part of that blanket stitch as well. might be easier to use the wrong end of the needle here. I'm just taking my thread underneath that stitch. I'm not going into the fabric at all, just basically wrapping it around. So I think that gives you a fair idea of the kind of thing I'm doing here. I'll be back again in a minute when I'm ready to take this off the, cut this off the background and make my dorsal fin. Right, I've done as much embroidery on there as I want to do for now. Definitely there will be more to be done once it's been applied to the background and stuffed. But that's all I want to do for the time being. So it's time to move on to doing the wings, not wings, fins at the back. So I'm going for roughly, I'm sort of in the template that I created. It's sort of roughly this shape. So, but I'm not going to follow that exactly. I'm just that's just roughly the shape I'm aiming at. Some of them go all the way, you know, sort of down the back. They seem to vary quite a bit. This little guy, he's just got quite a small little kind of frill of a transparent fin there, and it partly comes out. Part of it, like the first half of it, is kind of the colour of the rest of his body, and then he's got this kind of frill of a transparent. I think they vary so much. I mean, look at this one. It's hard to believe that even is a seahorse, but until you look again and you think, oh yes, so it is. Isn't that incredible? They do vary such a lot. That one's just got like a little transparent frill and much lower down than I've drawn mine. A lot of them seem to be much lower down. That one, you can see how low down that is. Yes, I've sort of got a rough idea of what I'm going for. I'm going to be making this up as I go along, as usual. I'm going to create a framework with this kind of wired cord. I'm hoping it's going to be sturdy enough to do it with. So I'm kind of aiming at roughly that kind of a shape. I think we'll do it. Let's cut a little piece off. I've got way more than I need here of this wired cord. Probably a bit wasteful, but I think, like Sarah mentions, it's better to have too much to start with, so kind of like that. It's quite small, really. Okay, so I'm going to do this on the other side of this frame. The thing I want to do first is another idea from Sarah is to just paint some watered down PVA along these inside edges. Now she does it with the wings, but I'm just thinking it would be a handy idea to try for these pieces that I'm doing on calico and then cutting out. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it and see if that makes the edges of my piece more secure. So I've watered it down. She said to make it a nice sort of creamy consistency. You don't want it to be, and I'm saying PVA. I think this is just like you would call school glue in America, you know, just, you know, white glue, white craft glue. This doesn't want to mix with the water very well, but it should do. I've got a silicone brush because I don't want to ruin a normal brush. I haven't tried this before, and it hasn't really been necessary, but I have had the edges fray a little bit from time to time on these pieces, so I'm just thinking it might be a good idea. So what I'm thinking is if I apply this now, it can be drying while I'm working on the fin. I can't see it's going to do any harm because it'll dry clear, and I just want it on the, I don't want it to go inside the fabric. I'm just trying to get it up against the edges of the stitches where it might otherwise fray when I cut it out in a bit. I don't really want to put it on the inside in case it comes through. And if I was doing this on something on the transparent fin thing, obviously I definitely wouldn't want it to go inside because it would really show. I think possibly Sarah had hers a little thinner. It's all part of the learning process. Oops, God. The nice thing about these silicone brushes is that I can just wipe it off, and if there's any left that dries on, it just rubs off. So yeah, a bit more delicate this fabric, so I've got to be careful. I'm not going to pull and tug on it quite as much as I would if it was calico or something. because it will, it'll kind of split apart if I'm not careful. It's going to be kind of, unlike the dragonfly wing that Sarah shows is like this, and you've just got an obvious end here. But I want more of a flat base to it. It can be a little bit wibbly wobbly. I think that will be fine because they kind of look a bit like that anyway. I'm thinking that would be quite a nice shape. Except I want more of a flat base. It doesn't kind of come to a point. It comes out of his body, so this would be the bit that will fit along his body, and then it will come out there. Kind of like that. Let's test it. Avoiding sticking the pin into the fabric within the wing, so it's going into the fabric on either side. Need another pin. So that's pinned in place there. Hopefully this fabric isn't going to give my camera too much of a problem. And now what I need to do basically is a blanket stitch all around it. Sarah works with a metallic thread. I feel like I've got enough to deal with using this, a new technique, and this fabric. So I think I'm going to give myself a slightly easier time and go back to using either this fabric, this thread that I used for the main base stitching, or do I go with more of this pink, because I think that might cover quicker. Maybe I want it, maybe the pink's okay, it'll make it stand out more, balance it up with everything else. Got to be ever so delicate because you can make holes in this fabric so easily. Now I'm going to bring it up just inside the cord at this end, and that's where I'm going to start working. And as I work, I'm going to enclose that end, and then I can cut the knot off in a minute when I've covered it with a few stitches. Okay, so now I'm just doing a straightforward blanket stitch or buttonhole stitch. I need to get it under my nose, around the cord, and enclosing that that long end. And once I've got a start, it won't be so bad, but I've got to be really delicate with it. And it might have been easier to practice this first on something a bit less fragile, but where would the fun in that be? It's looking okay to me from this angle, but I am at a bit of a funny angle. I need to get my head right over this. But you can see I'm just doing a pretty straightforward blanket stitch, but just enclosing that cord as I go, and enclosing this loose end. And once I've gone up to about there, I'll cut that knot off. I probably need to try and make the blanket stitch a little bit smaller, but that's quite hard to do when I can't get my nose right over it. So I'm going to carry on and work around this now. If you want to see a better demonstration of it, definitely go and check out Sarah's video, and I will come back when I've worked my way around here and I'm ready for the next step. You can kind of see what I'm doing there. And definitely I can see now, looking at that on camera, I need to make my blanket stitches smaller, so they're only just big enough to enclose that cord. So I need to get my nose right over it. And I will come back when I've worked my way all the way round and do the next bit with you. Okay, wish me luck. I'm going in. Okay, I finished doing a blanket stitch, buttonhole stitch all around the edge. It's a bit gappy. What Sarah suggests you do is use a thread that matches the cord that you're using, so that you don't get that gappiness. which it totally makes sense, as you can see, but it's okay. I'm happy with that. I'm happy if it looks a little bit ragged. I also ran a long running stitch. There's only like 3 stitches across there, just in lines across here, and as Sarah mentions, it only needs to be a running stitch because this fabric is so sheer. You can see the underside of the stitch through as well, so you don't need to do a back stitch. Is that clear? Thinking about it, it's very, very fragile, this fabric that I'm using, and it started to, part of the reason why it's a bit gappy is it started to get a little bit too holey to work into, and I had to sort of skip a couple of bits where I'd have liked to put an extra stitch in. I can't go and put an extra line of stitches around the edge now because I think that would just pull the fabric away even more. So it did occur to me that if I do another one like this, I might just double up the fabric. I think that would still be sheer enough. I still have that lovely iridescence to it. So what I need to do now is apply some of the watered down PVA around the edges, but try and not go into this middle bit, like I did with the Seahorse, and then when that's drying I'll be cutting out the Seahorse. That's what I'm thinking. I've lost the glue. What did I do with the glue? So I'm going to apply my glue outside of the shape and right up against the stitches there. I think that's the idea. Don't know if you can actually see where the fabric is so fragile. I can't get it to show on camera because of the nature of the fabric. The camera isn't liking it very much. And now I'm just going to leave that to dry while I start cutting my Seahorse out. That's not very close, but I'll cut a bit closer in a minute when I've got him out and I can get to it a bit easier. Because that PVA is there, it's going to make it less likely to fray and less likely for the stitches to come away. Okay, so it's going to take me a little time, but once this is on the background, I think I will be doing a chain stitch around it anyway, so that will cover any extra little bits that I've managed to cut into the stitching now. No, I've still managed to cut into the stitching. Okay, yeah. Once I stitch it onto the background, I will make sure I rectify that and cover any little bits of fabric that's showing. Yeah, I don't dare cut that close. That was too close. Okay. Right, I will carry on working my way around this and I'll be back when it's all cut out. Well, I've just done my classic and I've been wittering away to myself for 5 minutes. I just came back to show you that here we go. Here's the little Seahorse all cut out and ready to go onto the background. I've gone as close as I dare. You can still see just just about see the edges of the fabric there, but that'll be covered when I stitch him to the background. And do a bit of stuff him out a little bit, do some chain stitching around the edge, add a little bit more embroidery to him and add his wing. So I just showed I just basically went in with my little scissors and cut it off the frame, and I've checked that the PVA that I put on is all dry, and I'm just cutting as close as I very dare without actually going for the stitching. I do not want to go for the stitching. And what Sarah does in her video is she cuts as close as she dares, and then she sort of roughs it up with her fingernail like that, and then snips off any remaining tiny ends, and she turns it over to the back as well, because you can get to the rest of that fabric more easily from the back. And in theory, the stitching, the buttonhole stitching, will pretty much enclose the fabric, so you won't see it at all. So like there, you can't really see. I could take a little bit more off here. I do need to get those little sharp scissors on this. You can keep cutting back and cutting back till you can't see any of the fabric on the outside. and then these will be threaded through to the back of the work, and I'll put some, I won't put any more stitches through this fabric, but I could put some more stitches through the kind of knot part of the blanket stitch, just to help me secure this in place. So these will go through to the back and get fastened down, and I'll put a few stitches just to anchor this where I want it to be, and then I can shape it however I like. So it's standing up from the page, which I think would be really pretty. That's all I'm going to do for now. On camera, I'm going to finish preparing this background so that when I come back in a minute for you, tomorrow for me, I can pop my seahorse on the background, place his wing and everything, and then just do a little bit of the fabric manipulation techniques I was talking about earlier on to start creating one of the brain corals and the kind of trunk or stem part of the sea anemones for one of these little gorgeous pieces to go on top of just some of the round stuffed pieces, and some little fun kind of corally things from this. So hopefully I can fit all that into this video. Otherwise there might have to be another one in a couple of days. Okay, see you in a minute. I've done a whole lot of just straight stitching over my background. I'll add more bits and pieces as I work on it, but for the purposes of this video I'm done with the background for now. I've got my seahorse very, very carefully, neatly cut out all around and pinned onto the background, so I just need to kind of oversew that around. And then my little wing, I'm so delighted with how my little wing turned out for my first ever attempt at something like this. I'm thrilled to bits with that, and I think I'm not going to fix it in the same way that Sarah did, taking the wires through to the back. I'm actually going to just secrete these wires inside the body somewhere when I attach it, and I will sew it on like that. It just happens to fit into that little shape perfectly, more by luck than judgment. So I'll carefully overstitch that along there, and then I think what I'll do is just shape it up a little bit like this, and then take some stitches along these edges too, so that it helps to hold it in that shape. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and then I'll add more stitching around. Can't decide if I might just do a little bit of stuffing trapunto style, which I did in a couple of videos ago, so I won't worry about doing that with you now. I just stuff out that tail and a little bit of the body as well, but not too much. I'm not going to make it quite as kind of stuffed as the octopus was. And then probably a little bit of chain stitch or something around, which will help to hide these edges, finish everything off, and then a bit more beading around this outer crest here and down the back as well, and possibly a little bit here, just because I like the look of it. Excuse me, sounding a bit sniffy today. So I kind of feel like I've been going on a bit too long with this video. It's hard to tell really, because I've done it in lots of fits and starts, but I just wanted to do a couple of little experiments with different ways to create some dimension in my background, some by manipulating fabric, that as I was talking about earlier on. And then I will come back next time and do some more, but I just thought I want to make a little start on it. Bits and pieces like this, I could just cut round this. This is a little snippet from a Bazaar. Most of this stuff that I'm using at the moment is Bazaar scrap packs, so I could just carefully cut around these little eyelet shapes. I think if I cut round it all the way down both sides like that, this could be an interesting little bit of, whether it's some sort of plant life or some other kind of detritus, I don't know, but I think it could definitely fit in. I wonder if maybe it should be later in the book when everything starts to get a little bit darker. I don't know, but it's nice to have a bit of contrast. So yeah, I'll do a bit of that. Perhaps beads could go in the centre of each of the eyelets as well, who knows. Yep, so I'll put that to one side to do later. Just haven't got time to do it all. Pieces like this I think would be nice, just if I just cut circles, gather them up and stuff them. And same with these will all be little stuffed balls. this little piece of velvet, I might just along the sort of bottom of my page. I think I need to pull out a little bit here. Love this fabric. I've had a few pieces of this in the scrap packs in different colours. Love it, just love it. It's such strange fabric. It's because it's the same both sides as well. It feels lovely. So I've just used this flat before, but I'm wondering if a little bit of stuffing of this, just a little bit of stuffing would be a good idea. Now where's that piece I was going to use for to make the brain coral? I'm thinking the easiest way to do that is going to be to use some stuffing. So if I just take a small bit of stuffing like that and then sort of wrap this around it and then anchor it down with little stitches as I go. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So I think my first thing is to just gather up, run a gathering stitch all around this. Right, so I just left this shape ramshackle as it was, and it'll come out as it comes out, and I'm just running great big gathering stitches all the way around. I think this will work. It works in my head, you know what it's like. Okay, so I've got this sort of roughly ovalish shape there. I'm going to stuff that. How much shall I stuff it? Not too much. I don't want it too stuffed. It doesn't want to gather up anymore. Okay, why don't you want to gather? That's it. I just had something caught. Okay, right. So I've just pulled it up like that. Now I'm going to do a couple of double stitches so that doesn't come ungathered again. And we're going to find out if this is going to work. Right, so I've got that rough shape. I mean, they're pretty random shapes, those kind of brain corals, which is what I'm aiming at. I'm just going to plonk this here. It doesn't really matter where I go, I don't think, because I'm going to fill in all around anyway. And I think the next step is going to be I was going to tack it all the way around first, but I think maybe just my anchoring stitches will do it actually. My crumpling stitches. This is a new invention of mine called the crumpling stitch. Okay, so I've come up to the surface and now I'm going to go all the way back through my background. So I think what I'm hoping will work is that I can now crumple up the next bit come up through to the surface again, hold that crumple, take a stitch back through to the background. I think it's going to work, isn't it? I maybe just need to take another stitch there just to make sure it holds. Maybe one in there now. You can see where I'm going, can't you? So go adding in another crumple stitch. Okay, I feel like with each point I need to do 2 stitches to make it hold. It's what it feels like. I quite like how that's coming out. I think that's going to be okay. I don't want to do too much because I'll lose the dimension of it, but yeah, that was about the right amount of stuffing, not too much, otherwise I think it wouldn't have the look that I'm after. But I'm sure as time goes on I'll get the hang of crumpling it in a certain way to get a certain kind of fold. But yeah, I'm happy with this for now. Right, so I'm going to keep doing this until I've crumpled this as much as I like. And I could go back in and add French knots in these folds, or little beads or something, if I want to give it a little bit extra. And once I'm happy with all the crumpling, I'll just do some kind of like a ladder stitch, I think, just to anchor the edges down a bit as well. There we go. I'm quite happy with that at the moment. That's got kind of the effect that I wanted. I might add some more stitching into it and add some little beads in the little nooks and crannies as well, because I think that would be fun. And I think I will just do a little bit of a ladder stitch around the edges, although it seems less necessary now than I thought it might be. I'm going to just add this little scrap in now, and just crumple it up as I go, I think. Just turn the edges under as I go as well. It's nice to find a use for these little tiny little precious scraps that we keep. I'm just sort of pushing it into shape as I go, and just putting random stitches in just to hold it where I want it to be, really. I think that'll do with that for now. It might get a bit more stitch in later though. Yeah, this piece I'll cut a piece from and just very lightly stuff it. I'll probably cut it in a very kind of rock shape, turn the edges in, and either stuff it from behind or just leave a little opening, stuff it from the front, and then finish. Found another piece of fabric here. I think this is amongst the pieces that Kim sent me, actually. Thank you, Kim. Start with a rough square, then turn it into a rough circle. Now I'm going to gather around there, stuff it, and overlay it with a piece of this, because I think that will show through quite nicely. Right, I've gathered that all up. I'm going to put a bit of stuffing in there. That's a little bit more. I don't want to close the hole up completely, so it doesn't need to be. I think that's probably enough. And then this will go over the top of it. I think I'll just go back and forth a few times first to sort of semi-hold the stuffing in, just to make it easier to manage, really. It's not easy to make myself cut into this, but I still think it's a really nice way to use it. I think it's going to look really good. So I need to cut it about there. Okay, level with this section here, so that makes it easy. Ooh, cut, do it, just do it. So now I'm going to run a gathering stitch around this, wrap it around that, and pull it fairly tight to make this sort of a shape. So here we go. I've quickly gathered all the way around. I've just gone in and out of the little sections there. I'm going to put my stuffed piece inside and just gather this up around it. Oh, that's quite cute. I like that. Do a couple of anchoring stitches now. Bit of a mess at the back, doesn't matter, you're not going to see it. And then that will, when I decide where it's going to go, because it might not go quite there, I will just stitch it all around. It's trying to form itself into like a straight-sided shape, isn't it? Which I might let it do that. I think that could look quite nice, actually. I might add some beads to it, possibly. But yeah, it's just a random piece of coral, which will be amongst lots of other things. I've now got the edge that I cut off. Which I can crumple up. I might see if I can just leave it whole. or I might end up using it in 2 pieces. That can just be gathered up in the same way and attached somewhere, just to be a random piece of coral. These I'm going to make into stuffed balls, a bit like I did with that one, but I'm going to run thread back and forth across in a star shape kind of thing. I was going to have started on my anemones as well, pleating up the fabric to create the kind of stalk, or kind of, yeah, this sort of long part of the anemone, to put the lovely drizzle stitched piece on the top, like one of those gorgeous ones that Betty sent me, which I think I've left downstairs now. I have a feeling this video will have got far too long already, so I'm going to stop it here. Try and get myself a little thumbnail. Let's set up our pretty, oh look at him. Here we go, that'll do. That will do for my thumbnail. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there for today, because I think that video has probably already got way too long. So enjoying this project, so enjoying this project. There is such a lot of scope for experimentation. I think that's one of the best things about it. And one of the other things about it is that it's given me a chance to use all kinds of hoarded scraps and bits and bobs as well. Little scraps and trinkets and things. So I hope you all enjoyed watching along as well, and I hope you will keep on sharing your beautiful underwater scenes. I'm just, yeah, really loving it. I really enjoy seeing them, and finding new ideas as well. So thanks again for joining me today, and I'll see you again really soon.